Hi, my name's Rick, and I'm your friend. And I want to thank you for being a friend of the Crossroads Children's Ministry or Youth Ministry. You know, it's very important what we do when we minister to our children and our youth, and it's very important how we prepare as we teach lessons and that we do the hard work and the due diligence that it takes to be well prepared and to do that well. But in addition to that preparation, there's also what it takes just to be a volunteer. And it's important for us all to be well prepared at that level. So what we've put together is a process. It's a training process for all of our children's and youth worker volunteers. And what we're going to ask is that about every 2 years that every one of us complete this. And that's going to help us to stay current as to what we're presenting in terms of our policies and procedures. It's also going to help us to stay well informed as to what we're supposed to be doing. And it also makes our insurance company a whole lot happier if we do the due diligence of making sure that our people are prepared and informed. So what we're going to do today is I'm going to take you through a volunteer application. And it's the form that looks like this. It has this checklist on the first page. It is actually 12 pages long. I'm not going to go through every one of the pages in detail. The last few I will. Just want to introduce this to you and help you to understand how this all fits together. So the first thing that's on this training completion checklist, it says viewed orientation video. Okay, once you've watched this video that you're watching right now, you can check that. And the second thing on there says volunteer application part 1, personal information. That's on pages 2 and 3. What you're going to find is that's just all the normal personal information that's appropriate for us to ask you. And we ask you to do that. And then if you've been at Crossroads for less than 2 years, we're going to ask you for personal references for 3 of them. And then if it's determined that we should follow up with those, then on page 4 is a volunteer reference form. That's actually a copy of the form, not for you to fill out, but a copy of the form that we will send to them or instruct you to send to them, and they'll send back to us. So just keep that in mind. That's volunteer application, personal information, part 1. Okay. Number 3 on this checklist is part 2 of the volunteer application. That's the legal concerns. That's basically making sure that we are covered and that you are covered, that we understand who's working with us and you understand who you're working with. And so what this boils down to is there's going to be a background check that's done on every one of our workers to make sure so that we are sure that everybody that's working with our children is safe for them. And so you're going to fill out page 5, and that's one that we keep. And then pages 6 and 7 is what we send off to the company called Inquire Hire. They're the group that actually prepares the background check and performs that. And there is a $14 fee for that. And we'll ask you to pay that at the time of your application process. If that's a problem, please let us know. But it is an expense that we have. That's what it costs us. Bear in mind that all of this is completely confidential, never discussed with anybody else. Item number 4 on this training completion checklist, it says the worker supervision policy. That's on page 8. So why don't you go ahead and turn to page 8 in your application here. And I just want to go over a couple parts of this with you. I'm not going to read points 1 through 5 themselves, but 5A talks about the rule of 2, and that is the backbone of this. Basically, the rule of 2 states that there will always be 2 adults or 1 adult and 1 teen supervisor anytime we're dealing with our children up through grade 5, and that if that is not the case, if we don't have 2 adults in that children's classroom, that class will either cancel or combine with another class so that rule of 2 is met. Now for grades 6 through 12, it is acceptable for an adult to meet with 2 or more youth, so long as it's not just 1 adult and 1 teen. But 1 adult must not meet with 1 student alone. If that needs to change, then there needs to be permission granted from the parent. In other words, the parent needs to know that that adult is alone with their child. And that's the only exception for that. So that also applies to transportation to and from events. For example, if as a youth leader I'm going to pick up a teenager and take them somewhere, their parents need to know that they're going to be the only one in the car and that they have permission to be with me. So as far as the rule of 2 in youth gatherings, if there's a youth gathering going on, we strongly prefer that there are 2 adults there as well. However, if that can't be done, It's somewhat up to the discretion of the leaders, but if there are very many kids and there's only one adult leader, we recommend that that group cancel for that night or that particular time until there's better supervision. So there are other things here, and we're just going to ask you to go through those on your own on page 8. And then the next thing, the kinder zone and nursery security and bathroom policy. Okay, that basically has to do with, for the littler kids, how they will be released to the bathroom and or diapered. So please look at that and read it over, and it does require a signature. The next item on your list is item number 6, and that's called the procedures for responding to and reporting allegations of sexual abuse of a minor. Now, we hope and pray that that never happens here. But in the event that it either actually does happen or you suspect that it happens, either on the part of an adult to a child or a child to a child, if you suspect that ever happened, there are 8 points here, and we're going to go through those right now. Number 1, any person who has reason to believe that a minor has been sexually abused on church property at a church-sponsored function or in a relationship arising out of a church event or function, that person shall immediately report such a matter to the pastor of Crossroads Church. That's what you're supposed to do if you suspect that. The senior pastor, number 2, and a representative of the leadership team shall promptly investigate the allegations by discussing the matter with the victim, the accused, and any other witnesses to the incident. All parties will be treated with dignity and support. Number 4, the pastor will notify the parents or guardians of the minor. Number 5, a written report of the incident will be prepared by the pastor and the leadership, and such report will be retained by the church for a minimum of 5 years after the alleged victim reaches the age of 18, and for the period of time the accused attends Crossroads. Number 6, if the allegations appear to be valid, the matter shall be reported to an attorney for the church insurance company within 48 hours, and may, with the consent of the pastor and leadership, be reported to the Iowa Department of Human Services and or law enforcement authorities. Number 7, a written statement shall be prepared by the senior pastor and the leadership team in the event it becomes necessary to convey the news to the congregation and to answer inquiries from the press. Every effort should be made to protect the confidentiality of the victim and the accused. And point number 8, the senior pastor is the designated spokesman for the church. Now, all in all, it's very important that if you ever witness or are thinking you're witnessing or being made aware of something, that you report it. Don't ever not report an event that you think might have happened. And then once you report it, you have to remain absolutely quiet. You are not to talk to anybody. Don't tell anybody else in the church what you think happened. Don't tell anybody. Just tell whoever is the children's director or come directly to the pastor and let the pastor know, and the pastor will follow the procedure that we just went through. So now that you've seen that, you're going to need a signature on the application and a date. If you have questions about this, you may ask those questions at the break time of the video. Okay? The next item on this is page 11. It's called the Bloodborne Pathogen procedure. And what this is, it's some training. It's some training that all of us need in the event that we have to deal with blood or body fluids in handling or helping in the youth department or children's. So basically what you're going to do, this explains it all very clearly. You're going to go online to a certain website, and you're going to go to that page, and you're going to enter a code that once you've paid the $6 fee, you'll be entered into the segment. It takes about 30 to 40 minutes to do the reading. You're going to read all the information. You're going to take a test, and then you have to complete the test, and you have to score like an 80%, and you'll just keep retaking it until you get it. And once you do, then you're going to pass the exam, and you're going to receive a certificate. They're going to give you the opportunity to print that certificate, and you need to print one and bring it to the church office. Okay? So it's kind of a slick process. It's important for all of us to know about how to handle body fluids and blood so that we don't ever cross-contaminate an individual or ourselves. So keep that in mind. The next item is number 10, and number 10 on the list says to read the first aid procedures sheet. So it's on page 12, the first aid procedures sheet. pretty straightforward. And in addition to reading that, item number 11 on the completion checklist is that you have viewed the first aid video in its entirety. On the CD that we've given you, that you already have, that has this application and this orientation video, there is also a video, a 33-minute video on some first aid procedures, and you're going to watch the whole 33-minute video, and then you're going to say that you did, and you're going to agree to handle things like that. Part of that training also on paper here on page 12, it tells you where the first aid kits are located. For example, we have 2 of them at Crossroads, one in the kitchen and one in the Ignite room. We now have a sign on the door of the kitchen and the Ignite room, and then inside the actual room there is the same similar sign on the cabinet that the first aid kit is located in. So there are also secondary first aid kits. There's a primary kit that has most of the supplies that you'll need. There's secondary kits that have things like face shields for mouth-to-mouth breathing, extra gloves, and disposal bags for bloody materials and stuff like that. So just keep that in mind. So it's all right here. Something to keep in mind as far as first aid is, if you're ever in over your head, don't hesitate to get help. And most importantly, if you're ever way in over your head and it's a very critical situation, don't ever hesitate to call 911. So in addition to that, there are 2 more items on here. Item number 12 on your checklist says that nursery, kid zone, and kinder zone workers will pay $10 for their name badge and agree to wear that badge every time they serve. There's a replacement fee of $15 if that has to be replaced, because the first time around we'll get a little bit of a discount by ordering several at once. And so we just feel like it's important for parents to see and to know who it is they're dropping their kids off to, and that they can see an official badge helps the parents to have a sense that their children are being cared for by people who are supposed to be caring for them. And then finally, item number 13 on the checklist says, please print, staple, read, sign, and return this entire 12-page document. Not just the checklist, but the whole thing. And then if we need any parts out of it, we'll copy those parts, but we ask you to take the whole thing and print it, staple it, and fill it out and bring it back to us complete. The only page you won't be doing anything with yourself is the page that has the volunteer reference form. That's just for your information to see what gets sent out in the event that it needs to be sent out. So I think that's the whole process. And thank you for taking the time to watch this orientation video. Thank you for taking the time to watch the first aid videos and for filling out the application. We know there are 3 different fees associated with this process, and we apologize for that. If that is a problem, we don't want that to be a hindrance for you. So you can either pay that a little bit at a time, or if it's just too much, say something and we'll help you out with that somehow. So thank you once again for your interest in being a servant at Crossroads, for helping to provide for our children and our youth. And we just pray that it'll be fulfilling and rewarding for you and for the children and youth. Thanks so much. God bless you.